The Right Honourable the Lord Mayor. City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday, the 10th of October 2023. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. The Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. We also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations who are present with us. The Council acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage. We pray for wisdom, courage, empathy and understanding and guidance in the decisions that we make while seeking and respecting the opinions of others. May we in this meeting speak honestly, listen attentively, think clearly and decide wisely for the good governance of the City of Adelaide and the well-being of those we serve. Now could I ask that all present stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you, members. Today we have apologies and leaves of absence from Councillor Giles, Councillor Siebentrit and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. I would ask that someone move the confirmation of minutes. Councillor Davis moved, seconded by Councillor Snape. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. I don't know if anyone wishes to make a declaration of conflict of interest. If not, we'll move to the next item. This evening I've had several requests for deputations. 2 who wish to speak about State Heritage Incentive Scheme funding and Mr Shane Sodhi. I know Mr Sodhi has spoken on several occasions in the past, but I think it's reasonable he should speak today because the item he wishes to address is the one about which we'll be making a decision. So I've agreed to all 3. Could I firstly ask Ms Rhonda Avard to come forward? Thank you, Ms Avard. Would you like to come through the gate? It'll be open for you, thank you. And come up to the dais and switch on.
Here?
Please stay there. If you'd like to speak into the microphone, it will be recorded and transmitted.
I will.
And we have 5 minutes.
I will.
Thank you so much.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
And thank you for allowing me to speak. Good evening, everyone. I'm particularly talking about the cottage homes on Stanley Street and Kingston Terrace. I'm going to read it to make sure that I cover exactly what I want to cover. Okay? The cottage homes for the widows, aged and infirmed, fondly known as Lady Ayres homes, were a reflection of the direct expression of early philanthropy in the 1870s. In fact, it was quite applauded, the fact that these homes were put together by subscribers Lady Ayres being one of them, and the cottages are fondly referred to in some parts as the Adelaide Ayres cottages. They were a reflection of the direct expression of early philanthropy in the early 1870s and are recognised by Adelaideans as heritage icons. Significant for their rarity and reflective of British rose cottages. The cottage homes included on the Adelaide Parklands and City Layout map by the National Heritage are widely regarded as a masterwork of urban design. Located on Stanley Street and Kingston Terrace, North Adelaide, and I'm sure most of you would be aware of those cottages. This would not be new to you. They continue to add much to the character of North Adelaide as sandstone and bluestone treasures, are widely regarded as a masterwork of urban design, which was mentioned earlier. Located on Stanley Street and Kingston Terrace, North Adelaide, they continue to add much to the character of North Adelaide as sandstone and bluestone treasures, and to the valued tourist industry of South Australia, and indeed we value that. How much does the Council value heritage? And how does this influence the level of funding provided? Would Adelaideans want to see such iconic heritage recognised nationally falling into disrepair for lack of funding? Significant increases in construction work and materials over the past few years has put some planned conservation work out of reach for owners without additional funding. Indeed, we rely on the funding, as we have over previous years. And I certainly remember when the Honourable Lord Mayor was very much involved in the Russ cottages, for which we were very grateful. Significant increases in construction work and materials over the past few years has put some planned conservation work out of reach for owners without additional funding. As an owner of one of the cottage homes and committee member for over 22 years, the stewardship of the cottages has been for that time challenging and daunting. Suggests more daunting than expected. Most members commit to the task for love of heritage. You would have to, because it takes far more involvement than blonde brick constructions that are more easily maintained. Most members commit to the task for love of heritage and a belief that history is important to the identity of this city. The owners effectively are in partnership with Adelaide City Council, State Heritage and all Adelaideans. It's a firm... Sorry? I'd appreciate that. And I'll speed it up. Thank you, and I will speed it up. The owners are in partnership with Adelaide City Council, State Heritage and all Adelaideans in preserving such a national icon. Adelaide City Council has previously provided invaluable support to the committee and owners, and we are grateful. The Heritage Incentive Scheme over the years has provided funds for costly conservation work that owners' levies alone could not be expected to cover. Funding support also needs to be in line with the dramatic increases over the past years in construction work and materials. Currently, costly major conservation work on masonry and roofing is ready to go. We're off and running. But the owners are challenged to cover costs without funding from heritage agencies, and respectfully, nor can we wait for potential funding sources, to work out their differences. Long overdue repairs and replacement of roofing and masonry are urgent. As stewards in partnership with council, state government and one of Adelaide's outstanding heritage places, we, the owners, cannot be expected to do it alone. In a recent quote for much-needed conservation on one block of the complex, $20,000 offered in heritage conservation grants by state government wouldn't cover the cost of scaffolding. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I turn this off?
No, I think you could leave it on for the next speaker, actually. We'll be having someone else here in a moment. Could I now ask Mr. David Brown, who is... Thank you, Mr. Brown. Would you come forward again and speak to us for 5 minutes? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, Lord Mayor, councillors and council staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak at this meeting. This deputation is regarding the discussion at last week's City Planning, Development and Business Affairs Committee meeting regarding the use of Council's Heritage Incentive Scheme Fund for the funding of state-listed buildings. A bit of background who I am, because most of you probably don't know who I am. I'm a heritage architect, and for 5 years, from 2005, I was one of the external consultant advisors to Adelaide City Council. I'm the heritage advisor at Norwood Council and Prospect Council, and I'm also the architect for the cottage homes redevelopment. Our business has been involved in that project for 30 years now. We produced the original report back in 1994, and I've recently upgraded that, and that's why we're on this path to actually try and get some works done. I'd like to also start this by congratulating Adelaide City Council on maintaining their high level of funding through the heritage incentive schemes. We as architects have been personally involved in dozens of projects in the city with excellent outcomes that have utilised this scheme. It really does make a difference to the work we can do for our clients and for your ratepayers. So back to this issue of council funding state listed properties. In my 20 plus years of involvement with the scheme, this has come up several times. In the early 2000s, it was necessary to apply for funding from state heritage and be rejected before being able to apply for the heritage incentive scheme through council. When the state government removed their funding entirely, that was changed in the 2011 review, and at that time council approached the minister to lobby for more state heritage funding. It took 7 years for the government to reintroduce their funding scheme, which happened roughly 5 years ago. Some background on the State Heritage Places Grant Scheme. The current budget, $250,000 per annum, and that's meant to cover 2,300 plus state heritage places and 17 state heritage areas. Their funding is run a bit different to council's system. There is a round once a year, and it's open for a short period of time, and there's quite a lengthy application process and a lot of documentation needed to get that. So that round for 2024 has already, the next round will be, early 2024. The maximum grant for a residential property is $10,000 and for a non-residential property is $20,000. One of the main issues with, I guess, expecting the state government to assist with the funding of buildings is that there are 6 criteria that they assess by. And if we're to look at the cottage homes, for example, they would satisfy one of those 6 criteria. So those criteria, in summary, are adaptive reuse, which we're not doing, public realm, so works that can be accessed by the community, the heritage trades and training support, which is the one we would be satisfying, community projects, places at risk, in particular impacted by the River Murray flooding, and regional and remote places. So if we're looking historically, buildings in the city are typically very underrepresented in the recipients of the grants. So there's been 5 rounds since they started their scheme up again, and the following projects in the city have received money from the state government. There were 2 churches in the first round, 1 church in the second round, 2 churches in the Botanic Gardens in the third round, 2 commercial buildings and 1 private modernist house in the fourth round, and in the most recent round, the Catholic Archbishop's house on West Terrace. So that means in 5 years, there has been 1 privately owned house that has received funding from the state government. So that's $10,000 out of $1.25 million has gone to a private home in the city. So with the general trend of them for funding public and institutional buildings, the chances of projects like the former cottage homes to ever be funded by the state is minimal, if not non-existent, until they expand their criteria and increase their funding. Essentially, the state has a lot of catching up to do compared with Adelaide City Council. In the city, there are 649 state heritage places, and that accounts for 28% of all the state places in the state, and 1,850 local places. To my mind, I would have thought that would mean that it's quite reasonable to spend around 25% of the council's budget on state heritage places, given that they make up around 25% of the heritage places in the city. It's a logical assumption from me on the outside. Obviously, I'm not on the inside making these decisions. The assumption that it is the responsibility of the state government to fund state-listed items in the city is not necessarily a logical one. It was Adelaide City Council that listed these properties. Adelaide City Council receives the rates from the owners, and Adelaide City Council is the leading proponent of supporting heritage in this state. It was, back in the 1980s, it was Adelaide City Council who carried out the surveys. Almost done, if you don't mind. Thank you. Back in the 1980s, Adelaide City Council carried out the heritage survey for the state heritage items and published them in a book. Most of you would have seen that lovely maroon-bound book. Because of these listings and the later local Heritage Place Listings Council vowed to support the owners of heritage properties, and hence the funding scheme came into existence. As I mentioned above, over the last few decades, the issue of funding state heritage places using council money has come up several times, and each time it is raised, it's eventually dismissed as not being a reasonable outcome. It would send the message that Adelaide City Council does not equally support all heritage items and tends to value the local items more than the state items, which I don't think is anything anyone wants to see or anything anyone believes. If we had a state government that supported heritage anywhere near as much as this council does, this would not be an issue, but we do not. So until that changes, the properties that Adelaide City Council has listed needs to be supported by them. The onus on a state heritage property owner is higher than that of a local listed place due to the restrictions placed on these properties and their historical significance. So if anything, there should ideally be more funding for state heritage places, not less. And then finally, the 2 applications for funding that came before the committee last week are held by multiple owners. In the case of the cottage homes, there are 28 owners as a part of the strata, and with the North Terrace property that was also up for funding, there are 3 owners. So the only reason these applications made it to the committee is because the owners got together to do the project rather than approaching it individually. If they had applied for funding individually, that would have been approved under the current scheme guidelines, and it would never have come before the meeting. Ultimately, preserving our state-listed places is not just a responsibility, it's an investment in our city's cultural identity and future. These are the most historically significant and important heritage properties in our city. Thank you.
Could I just say to Ms Avard and Mr Brown that this item will be the second one on the agenda if you want to wait to see it pass through. Thank you. Next speaker, Mr Sodhi. Good evening, Shane. Mr Sodhi, I think you know the 5-minute rule again.
Indeed. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm here representing more than 550 financial members and more than 5,000 social media supporters of the Adelaide Parklands Association. This deputation covers 2 items on the council agenda, items 12 and 13, both about the proposed new State Aquatic Centre. I'm starting with the assessment of community consultation, item 13. You're being asked to endorse an assessment of community consultation on a draft lease and licence. You know what happened with that consultation process. An overwhelming majority, 98%, rejected the concept that a new aquatic centre should be located on parklands. respondents wanted to have a new aquatic centre on a brownfield site to protect parklands, not to harm the chances of World Heritage listing, to avoid early closure of the existing aquatic centre, a site with better public transport options, not to have increased parking on parklands, to protect existing trees and wildlife habitat and retain the existing recreation facilities. In the assessment summary, all of these concerns were effectively dismissed in 2 lines by saying, prior to the consultation being undertaken, the Council had resolved to partner with the state government for the centre to be on parklands. The consultation results did not respond directly to the purpose of the consultation process. That makes virtually all of the feedback irrelevant. Going back to the 27th of June, this Council resolved to authorise the Lord Mayor, CEO or delegate to negotiate and execute a project agreement, a long-term lease of up to 42 years and a construction licence. This was a very clear legal mistake. This decision on the 27th of June was beyond Council's power. No such decision could have been legally authorised as early as 27th of June before any consultation had occurred. It cannot have preempted subsequent public consultation on the essential question of granting a lease or licence. Section 202 of the Local Government Act makes this very clear. Before the Council grants a lease or licence relating to community land, it must follow the relevant steps set out in its public consultation policy. If the results of the public consultation overwhelmingly rejecting the idea of a lease or licence on the parkland is to be dismissed on the basis that this proposed lease or licence is merely reflecting the earlier Council decision on 27th of June, then that dismissal would leave Section 202 virtually irrelevant. If Section 202 is to have any meaning at all, then the Council decision on 27th of June has to be interpreted as being subject to the following process of public consultation. Clearly, the results of the consultation undertaken by Council over July, August and September are relevant as to whether the decision of 27th of June can stand or should be revisited. It would be paradoxical at best and a breach of faith at worst with the community to proceed as if this consultation had not occurred. If Council intends to rely on its earlier decision of 27th of June to effectively ignore very clear community feedback, then the Council should, I advise, obtain legal advice about whether its decision of 27th of June was ultra vires, beyond power. Now, that's relevant to 2 decisions tonight, both the Community Land Management Plan, sections 2.6 and 2.7, and also the assessment of community feedback. Just by way of context, our petition on change.org urging the Premier to choose a brownfield site for an aquatic centre has now swelled to 7,785 signatures. As you know, the state government is purchasing 524 properties to upgrade South Road. It's purchased the old West End Brewery site of 8 hectares. And just last Sunday, it announced $15 million to the Adelaide Crows for their new headquarters. Clearly, the state government can find a better site for an aquatic centre if it has the political will and perhaps a little nudge from this chamber. Thousands of Parkland supporters and petition signatories are still hopeful that you as a council will encourage the state government to read the room. It would be a triumph for the state government if it could over-deliver on its election promise. Thank you. Thank you. It would be a triumph for the state government if it could over-deliver on its election promise and work with the City of Adelaide to deliver not just a great new aquatic centre on a more convenient brownfield site, but also 3 hectares of restored parklands. That really would be a win-win, and you can help them insist on a win-win, not a win-lose. You know that's what your community want. please reflect your community's wishes. And a first step would be to delete paragraphs 2.6 and 2.7 from the Community Land Management Plan.
Thank you. Members, we will now move on to note there are no petitions. Item 11 has two recommendations, and some of the items from that committee were deferred. Could I ask if the chair of this of the City Community Services and Culture Committee would like to move these recommendations? Okay. Deputy Lord Mayor is moving. Would you like to move all of them together?
My understanding is that there are just two items. Is that correct, Lord
Two
Mayor?
items, yes. And
yes, I'd like to move an alternative recommendation to the recommendation 1, and recommendation 2 is printed. The alternative should be there. That is the alternative to recommendation 1, Velo Adelaide.
Can I just point out that Councillor Kouros wanted to pull out item 7.1 as well, to have a motion related to that element. So I'll take that as an amendment.
7.1, Lord Mayor, could you remind me?
7.1 was the unleashed element, so I could take that as an amendment to the motion, but perhaps we should have your amendments first.
Yes, certainly, Lord Mayor. Can I just have a moment to absorb what you just said? Having a look at 7.1.
The unleashed element was not a recommendation to council, it was just a noting at that committee meeting, and therefore did not find its way onto the council agenda.
I see. So it has no effect other than noting?
It has no recommendation other than noting.
Oh, well, I'm happy if Councillor Kouros is to move that at this time as well.
Can I just see? I haven't seen the councillor's amendment. Can we just
Sorry, Lord Mayor, can I just ask for clarity? Are we not moving all the items that were in the committee because they were only for noting? And we're not moving them here in the council, in the chamber?
The Deputy Lord Mayor is moving 7.2 and 7.4, which is recommendation 1 and recommendation 2. And he has an amendment that relates to the trailer park.
Correct.
So it would be appropriate. Have we a seconder for your motion? Seconded by Councillor Snape. So those two motions are on the books, and we could then take an amendment from yours, Councillor Kouros.
But do you want to... this is all very confusing for me, sorry. All these items that we discussed in committee, we're not, even though, because they're noting, we're not going to vote on them tonight.
No.
Is that... okay. So I have to pull it out ones that I would like to amend.
So we can suspend meeting procedures if we need to, but I'm happy to take an amendment to pull out the matter you want.
Well, do we do that after the Deputy Lord Mayor does his two amendments?
I'm offering you the chance to amend his motion with part 3.
So now 7.1 is in with his motion, is that right?
I'm moving an alternative motion, Lord Mayor.
Moving an alternate motion. If it's too difficult for you, Councillor, I'll take...
Can we have it as separate?
We'll take the voting separately, yes, we can do that.
Because I just think it gets too confusing, because he can speak to what he would like to speak to and I can speak to what I like to speak to. Yes, we can have a motion without notice, but I thought it would be tidier in this committee meeting. Sorry? It is better to have an amendment to the motion, because then it's not regarded as a matter that requires urgency as a motion. But Lord Mayor, the recommendation came through the committee, therefore can't you
and
amend
that's
the
why I was
recommendation
going to suggest
in
a
chamber?
part 3, a third part, which would be recommendation 3.
Yeah. should be on
I
the
think that it would be easy if you accepted this as
Bad
recommendation
governance.
3 as an amendment, and then we could deal with it and then deal with the rest of the emotion. Would that be?
So we'll let, I think that's
Deputy Lord Mayor, I'm sorry to have you standing up and sitting down. Would you like to...
Yes, I would, Lord Mayor.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor Kouros?
But he hasn't moved the motion. Doesn't he need to speak first?
He does.
Before
But
she can move an amendment?
she is moved. I don't need your help, thank you, Councillor. I'm asking Councillor Kouros to move to second her amendment.
Wait, no, but we
Can,
have a
but no
motion
one's
on the
seen
table
it.
where he's spoken to it.
He hasn't spoken to it yet. But
So then the Deputy Lord Mayor needs to speak.
can you please not give me instructions?
Well,
Can you please not give me instructions? No, I'm asking you not to give me instructions.
No, I don't agree. You need to follow the meeting procedures.
No, well, in that case, if you'd like to leave the room, I'm happy to...
Like, the Deputy Lord Mayor needs to speak to the motion.
He does not need to speak to the motion.
That's what's in the meeting procedure. When you have the call, you move the motion.
I will take Councillor Kouros's amendment if she has a seconder. Councillor Ho, thank you. Her amendment relates to the unleashed. Would you like to just describe it, Councillor?
So Deputy Lord Mayor now loses his chance to speak.
No, he hasn't. Thank you. Can you... I will remind you that I have the power to exclude you if you keep interrupting. Councillor Kouros has the floor.
Point of order then. When somebody moves a motion, they seek a seconder. The move the motion speaks to the motion. After that process is concluded,
Councillor,
if there is an amendment, I'm making a point of order. If
Councillor.
there is an amendment to that motion, then you seek a mover and then a seconder from the amendment. Then we vote on that, and then we return back to the...
Councillor, the Deputy Lord Mayor is happy to allow this amendment in order to make the meeting proceed easily. I'd like you to sit down, please. If not...
I'm just clarifying, the Deputy Lord Mayor now loses his chance. He just speaks to the motion.
Councillor, please stop creating a scene. I'll draw your attention to 86.6a. If you want to create a scene, I'll have to ask you to be excluded. Councillor Kouros, do you want to move this amendment?
I will, just to move things along, but I have to admit it's all a little bit confusing. But I've added to point 3 to the item, asking administration to investigate opportunities to extend the current East End Unleashed program during the Fringe to expand citywide, including the north, south and west parts of the city, to ensure that economic benefits are extended to the whole of the city and North Adelaide. It's a very simple addition to the recommendation, and we discussed this in the committee to broadening the economic viability.
Deputy Lord Mayor, if he wants to incorporate that motion. Yes, Lord Mayor. Thank you. In that case, we'll incorporate the 3 parts.
Okay, so you've got a mover and a seconder. Is this now a variation where now this is a mover?
You might not like the way I chair the meetings. You might not like the way I chair the meetings, but that's not your prerogative. I suggest...
As a member of this
council... Councillor, this is not helping the meeting.
This is a point of order.
You've given your point of order, and I'm saying, would you sit down?
I'm asking for clarification on what's happening. Is this now variation accepted by the mover and seconder?
It is.
Okay, so it's not an amendment.
It is.
All right.
Because we were not clear as to the item. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I will warn you that if you stand up and start screaming anymore, I will ask you to leave. Deputy Lord Mayor, I'm sorry, can you take the 3 parts now from this motion? I should actually explain some of the issues around part 1. I don't know if you will be explaining that, Deputy Lord.
Yes, I'm happy to do that, Lord Mayor. I ask members to look at the screen. The wording of the variation was determined only moments before the meeting, and therefore they need to understand precisely what it is it says. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, this matter was discussed at committee, and members would have received correspondence from ratepayers, particularly living in the south of the city, and indeed residents concerned about disruption to access, noise, and other matters during the period of the event. Lord Mayor, I accept and understand all of that. However, I and many others voted at committee to support this event. However, I, and I know you especially, were dismayed today when it was revealed that the Motorsport Board had proposed an expansion, which was unexplained at our committee meeting, of 1.6 hectares of the footprint which was formally required for the event. That 1.6 hectares, it transpires today, was intended for the use of a, and I use your words, Lord Mayor, trailer park. That is to say, the state government was proposing that the site be opened, Rymal Park be opened to RV vehicles for a period of 4 days, for which they would be invited to enjoy our parklands, no doubt enjoying not only the amenity but barbecues or whatever else they chose to do in that period. Not dissimilar, I might add, to the Bathurst 500, which invites a larger number of people to park RVs near the course. Now, the significant difference between what occurs at Bathurst and what occurs as it was proposed here at the City of Adelaide was that the Bathurst 500 event is located in country rural Bathurst. It's in paddocks. This, it was proposed, was to be sited in the middle of our parklands, without any explanation of the process that would accompany that, and indeed without any detail about facilities. I can't imagine what a parklands would look like after 4 days of 160 recreation vehicles emptying their water and other waste wherever they chose fit. Happily, Lord Mayor, I understand that through representations from the City of Adelaide, and you particularly, that has been withdrawn as a proposal, and it is no longer going to happen. However, there remains the possibility that something like this could be proposed again. And therefore, this motion is designed to allow you to write to the Premier of South Australia and to the Chief Executive of the South Australian Motorsport Board. May I have just a minute more? Thank you. And to request that such activities are not permitted anywhere in the parklands. But I particularly take note of the intention of the event holders to still close Quentin Kenahan Park. It is, of course, the park that is designed to be accessible to all people, however, apparently not during the Adelaide 500. That is to say, we are denying access to an accessible playground on the basis of the needs of the car race are greater than those with special needs, including special toilets which were constructed by the City of Adelaide. Lord Mayor, I can't emphasise how important it is that we make this representation to the Motorsport Board and also to the government, if possible, to let them understand that these are parklands, not trailer parks, and that our accessible play spaces are accessible play spaces, not negotiable.
I'll be very brief because that's a very hard act to follow, Deputy Lord Mayor, and I agree wholeheartedly. I commend the Lord Mayor's efforts today in picking up the phone and encouraging the Premier to also pick up the phone, I guess, and remove the trailer park, the suggested trailer park, from the Adelaide 500, and therefore our wonderful parklands. But as the Deputy Lord Mayor has stated quite clearly, there is still the risk with that land. So we need to make sure that the land in question is returned back to the public realm and not used for other purposes, storage, car parking, whatever it may be. We all know there's always a need for more land in an event such as this. And just to echo again what the Deputy Lord Mayor said about the Quentin Kenihan inclusive play space, I'm concerned about the optics, both for the Motorsport Board, also the state government, and possibly ourselves, of having an accessible playground. It's that simple. So I was supporting this motion wholeheartedly and encourage the rest of the Chamber and my colleagues to do so. Thank you.
I have a question, Lord Mayor. So you had a conversation with the Premier in regards to this, and what was the result of the conversation? Was it something that he would look to the future?
I had conversations all day with various parts of the organisation, and there was a view that there should be a consultation carried out, because to date there hadn't been a consultation on the use. There had been information about the size of the area, which was 16,000 square metres, and both the board and management discussed how that might be used without any inference to date of the actual use, because you recall that when it came through Caterpillar and the committee, we still didn't know the reason for 16,000 square metres. It appears they were considering this project, but they hadn't actually consulted on it. So I'm very keen that if something like this is considered, there's a proper consultation that should involve residents and businesses.
Follow-up question: when you write to them, are you going to be strongly objecting, or are you going to be asking for consultation on this matter?
I'm interested in the views of the council. I objected to the notion of a trailer park in the parklands in my discussions. I'm interested to know what council thinks. So is there no alternative view to this? If not, Deputy Lord Mayor, are you happy to have these motions taken in parts?
I am, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So can I ask all the... Councillor Ho? I'm sorry, I can't hear Councillor Ho. I'm sorry, thank you.
I'm just a bit confused here, the line. So are we moving that line exactly what is printed
Can you
on
go
the screen?
back up? We're losing the motion here.
Yeah, so we're just moving that one on the screen without the additional three sentences from Councillor Quiros.
This is noting part 3 is noting the advice of Caterpillar.
Yeah.
So we haven't moved on to the recommendations 2 and 3. This is just in parts.
No, that's right. Okay, cool.
No, there's one debate for all 3.
No, we're taking it in parts.
So you didn't move your amendment. We're just dealing with the first item.
And we are taking it in parts.
But we're taking 3 separate debates now for one motion.
Well, we can take them all at once if you want to. And I've asked the Deputy Lord Mayor.
Lord Mayor, look, my colleague seems to be confused. I understand what's happening. There are 3 separate parts to this committee. We are taking each of the motions separately. I would like a vote separately on each of the motions. At this point in time, for the benefit of my colleague, I'd appreciate having his support for this motion.
Okay, so you just moved the first item.
We can debate each item separately if we wish to, but we're going to take the votes in parts to make it clear. You don't wish to take the votes? So we'll move recommendation 1 as printed. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Can we move down to number 2? Again, the Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Snape moved this. So this is about community buildings. Is there any debate on that? There's an error in the numbering. Councillor Quiros should be part recommendation 3. Sorry? Councillor Snape is part 2, which is about the draft. Part 2, which is the recommendation 2, item 7.4. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. And now we'll move on to the third part, which is Councillor Kouros.
Mayor, I'm sorry. Everyone's confused. Maybe two people. There are some people that are confused. So my understanding is that the recommendations that came through committee, not all of them are being voted in tonight because they were noting. So I've pulled something out that was for noting and amended it. And that's what I've done here. Correct?
I think that's quite clear. So unless there's any further debate, those in favour? Those against? That's carried. I'm sorry it was so untidy. Councillor Noon, this is your committee, isn't it? Would you like to move as printed?
Lord Mayor, can I request that we take it in parts, please?
Yes. Would you be happy to do that, Councillor
Absolutely,
Noon?
yes.
I think we have the same challenge here in that we have an item which was 2.3 on the committee meetings, and in the paragraph, item 7.3, which I believe some members would like to pull out and amend again. So what I think it would be easier to do this time than we did last time was to ask how we could get that motion incorporated as an amendment without it causing confusion. Thank you, Councillor. So Councillor Noon has moved the motions as printed. Did she have a seconder? Councillor, thank you. Councillor Elliott. Did you wish to amend it, Councillor?
Yes, I did, Lord Mayor. Look, for the sake of clarity for my colleagues, I would be proposing and asking that the non-controversial recommendations, which are 1, 2 and 3, are taken en bloc, and I'd then propose a new recommendation 4 with the existing 4 to become 5, and that recommendation 4 is the amendment, or at least the addition, which I'm asking the administration to show now, which was circulated to elected members before the meeting.
I think that that's extremely difficult to manage, Deputy Lord Mayor. Can I just ask Councillor Noon if she would be happy if we moved 1, 2 and 3?
Yes, I would.
As printed.
Yes.
May we deal with those first?
Certainly, Lord Mayor.
So I'll ask you if you want to debate that, or can we just move it? Thank you, Councillor. I will throw you out if you keep speaking.
You probably should listen to me.
Councillor.
You have beforehand in other things.
Councillor.
I'm trying to help you.
I know, but you're not being constructive.
It's 12.9 of the meeting procedures.
Can I just remind you that we have a complicated agenda here, which we are trying to come through. Thank you. We don't need help. 1, 2 and 3 together, moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. So item 4 is a recommendation for the CLMPs, and it's as printed on the screen. And I think that's been moved by Councillor Noon already. Is that right? Deputy Lord Mayor is going to move. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. As I mentioned, I would like to propose a new 4, with the existing 4 becoming 5, for the sake of clarity. The new 4 relates to amendment, or at least an addition, that was flagged to councillors during the course of the afternoon. And if I could see it on screen, for the benefit, Lord Mayor, may I ask councillors who've not had the opportunity to read their emails this afternoon to view this?
I think that this is quite complicated process.
I'm happy to second it, Lord Mayor, for the sake of... I withdraw my second and allow Councillor Couros.
You need a flare.
Debating madly. Recommendation 4, seconded by Councillor Couros. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, the motion before you, and I do urge everyone to read this, is a correction to what occurred at committee last week. When this matter arose, it was observed, Lord Mayor, that the projects recommended for funding under the heritage incentive schemes were state heritage listed, and that state government should be available to look after these. And so those of us in the room who took note of that particular comment had a collective rush of blood to our heads, and I'm afraid, Lord Mayor, voted down the proposition put to us. Now, Lord Mayor, it is a validation of our committee system that the passage of 1 week before the matter is due to come before Council has served us well. It's given me and some of my colleagues the opportunity to reach a different conclusion, one that we should have followed in the first instance, and I acknowledge that there are some councillors, including Councillor Couros, who did suggest that this should be adopted. Had wisdom not diverted me on the night, I would have also asked for an amendment to what was proposed, and that would have taken up the point that was made in the room, and that is that it does seem anomalous that the care of state heritage buildings should rest entirely with the City of Adelaide. Now, notwithstanding what we heard from the speakers tonight, and I thank our speakers for the information they provided to us, it seems to me unreasonable that the state government, in accepting state heritage listing for buildings, is not obliged to assist the City Council and indeed all local government areas in South Australia in the maintenance of those properties. And this motion allows the administration to investigate the opportunities where there may be a chance of co-funding. That is, the local government area, in this case the City of Adelaide, and the state government jointly partnering in the funding of such projects. Now, I understand there are hurdles, but the intention of this motion is to open the dialogue and to allow the administration to report back to the Council about how we might move forward in future. For tonight, however, it seems to me inappropriate to be, because of a refinement of our policies, penalising the projects which were proposed for funding. Lord Mayor, I ask my colleagues to endorse this, to allow those projects on Kingston Terrace and on North Terrace to proceed, and additionally to instruct the administration to pursue a policy that embraces any opportunity for co-funding with the state government.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, for bringing this forward. And as you said, I did not agree with the decision at committee, and we should be, due to poor policies, we should still be committed to ensuring that we restore our heritage and support our heritage within our city and the North Adelaide. However, this is an example of how the structure of the committee has caused angst with the community. We had one decision in committee, and they spent talked to them numerously throughout the week. They were very upset, the property owners of this. Of these properties, that the decision in council at the committee was made to not support it, but I'm very grateful that we have this opportunity to be able to rectify that in tonight's meeting. I think we should just need to review our meeting procedures in regards to that.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. It's also your electorate.
Look, I was chairing this committee, and you know, at the time, I must admit, I thought I need more information. And the beauty about our governance structure, being a committee and then going to council, is that we have a whole week to actually find out more information. I was inundated with emails and phone calls about this. I actually asked administration for a bit more information, and that is the beauty of that week. Because just imagine if last week was council meeting and this would have been passed. This would have been really bad. This is why we changed the governance structure to the way it is, and that is why we have this really good outcome tonight. Totally support this, and in particular, number 3, to explore opportunities for joint state government and council grant funding for state heritage places, because it shouldn't be just council's cost as well. This is the city of Adelaide. It is, in fact, South Australia should have, it should be local government, should be state government, it should be joint funding, and I really think we need to progress those discussions. Thank you.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. Yes, the committee was always an opportunity to allow the decision to be made before it comes into council and for clarification.
I'll keep it very brief, Lord Mayor. Just to echo the comments of the Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Noon, I think that this week has given us all a chance to reassess, to get new information, to listen to our constituents, and in some cases cool our heels. So it's a testament to the new committee structure. I say new, it's almost a year in now, and it shows that it works and it gives more transparency and more direction to the chamber. So I commend the structure, and I'd also like to commend the Deputy Lord Mayor for his excellent work over the years representing the constituents of North Adelaide. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you. The new committee structure, what it does is it allows us to make a decision, see if anybody gets angry about it, figure out if it's a mistake or not, and then pedal as fast as we possibly can, and then pat ourselves on the back for the excellent decision that we made at last committee meeting, and how this committee structure, even though it pays, I think, councillors $115,000 over 4 years, what an excellent idea that is.
Through the presiding member.
Through you, Lord Mayor, I don't agree with any of the comments here. This was clearly a mistake made at the last committee meeting. And what happened previously was there was a committee meeting that didn't cost us a whole bunch of money to pay councillors a very large sum to chair those committees. And at that point in time, we could seek the extra information. Now, when council is making a decision...
Councillor, I think we're straying from the point...
I'm sorry. The Deputy Lord Mayor has all the opportunity to talk about...
I have a point of order, Councillor Davis.
Noon has all the opportunity...
Lord Mayor, at no point has the matter of the motion actually been discussed by the Speaker. It is clearly about an unrelated matter of our committee structure.
Yeah. You're quite right. So the way that this motion came to chamber has not been good, and I agree with the outcome here.
I'm glad you agree with the outcome.
The Speaker has not returned to the matter at hand of the motion.
No.
Thank you. If perhaps
I do believe it being an agenda item, it warrants actually discussing the matter on the agenda, not procedure.
Not the committee structure. Apparently, look, I apologise. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm waiting for a ruling from the Lord Mayor.
She's already made that. I'm saying sorry. I'm saying sorry for bringing up about the excellent structure of our committee meeting and highlighting that. I'll return to the item at hand rather than our committee meeting procedures. I'm sure if Councillor Elliott had brought the point of order previously to Councillor Noon and Councillor Deputy Lord Mayor, then I would have followed suit. But I think this is a good allocation.
Please sit down.
And I'm very sorry that the committee made the wrong decision previously.
Sit down. Please don't reflect on the motives of other members of council. Deputy Lord Mayor, would you like to sum up? Thank you. Put recommendation forward to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. That was unanimous. All too well with Ainsworth. Thank you very much indeed. And now we have part 5. Can I just have clarification about the numbers? I may have to suspend meeting procedures. I'm a little confused about this. I see. So now we have recommendation 5 with the first 2 parts as printed. And there's been a slight amendment from the original draft in that Council doesn't have the power to alter or direct alteration of the Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy, but it must request that the Parklands Authority does that. And so the amendment has been reframed as asking Caterpillar to consider the following changes. So that's moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor and seconded by Councillor Snape.
Did all members get an opportunity to move the original motion?
I think that it might be useful to suspend meeting procedures for a few minutes so that we can read it.
No, my question was...
I'm not asking you what you think. I'm asking the floor.
I'm asking a question without notice. When you were seeking a mover for this particular motion, did all councillors have fair chance to move a motion? Did you call it from the floor? Did you just simply award it to the Deputy Lord Mayor?
We don't need any further advice.
I'm just wondering, did I get a fair crack at it?
Councillor, please. I'm going to ask that someone move suspension of standing orders. Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor. I would like it to, would 5 minutes be enough? 5 minutes? All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. We'll have 5 minutes suspension. I think we can have it emailed to members so they can read it on their screens. I struggle to know what this all means, but it's only advice to Caterpillar to consider these matters. It's not a prescriptive motion. It's advising the Parklands Authority to consider these matters.
Make sense of what it is. How is Caterpillar going to make sense of what it is? So, I mean, doesn't this need to be more clearly defined, because it seems to be a bit messy?
It's advice to Caterpillar to consider these matters.
But we're otherwise adopting it as was.
Yes.
That's terrible.
The community land, as I understand it, the Seal MPs are being recommended for approval, but there's discussion about the Parklands Management Strategy.
Lord Mayor, I think we need more than 5 minutes here. We have to refer to page 3, page 4, page 5, just to be very clear. And I do not want direction from you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I would like direction from administration, please. Sorry, so I can...
Yeah, Lord Mayor, I understand standing orders have been suspended, and therefore I would just ask my colleagues to view the document there and understand that the references are to the pages of the existing community land management plans, which for weeks now the community has been asking each and every member of this council to read in order to understand the difference between the current CLMPs and the draft proposals. Exactly. There is nothing new here. If you haven't read this, you haven't read the existing community land management plan.
Respectfully, Lord Mayor, I haven't memorised every single page. I need to reference this. I know you spent a lot of time on this, and I appreciate that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that it's very detailed. And in all due respect, I have not read, I haven't memorised every page that you're referencing to. So in order for me to agree to it, I actually would need to actually sit down and look at each individual page that you're referencing.
Lord Mayor, can I foreshadow that when we move back into formal, that under Regulation 18, I will move that the matter be deferred until the documents that Councillor Kouros requires can be delivered to her to inspect them, as indeed all members would have the opportunity of doing.
I would prefer us to deal with the items that are as printed, and since this discussion and the extra material relates to the Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy, that's really separate from the CLMPs. And so we could defer the discussion of the Parklands Management Strategy but progress the CLMPs.
No, I'm not proposing that, Lord Mayor. I'm proposing that these two matters are intertwined, and if my colleagues have not read the existing community land management plans or cannot recall them, then we should allow them the opportunity to review those documents before voting on this matter. However, if a few minutes to allow them to familiarise themselves with this detail would help, I'm perfectly satisfied.
Well, in order, Lord Mayor, I'm revoking section 61, I think it is, that I would, in order for me to make a decision, I would need all of this documentation to be given to me.
Let me go back and scroll through this motion. Can we go back to the top? Is there any reason that we could not move items 1 to 3, and then when the red comes and requests, make that part 4 and request that Caterpillar consider, and that way we're separating what is completely new from what is old, and then we can take it in parts?
In answer to your question, Lord Mayor, yes, there is a very good reason, and that is that the community that has spoken to us on numerous occasions will not be comfortable until they see these two things together. Management plan. It is consistent with what the administration has been telling us. That is, the protections will be in the Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy. This proposal is that we ask the authority, the Parklands Authority, Caterpillar, to consider these protections in their consideration of the Parklands Management Strategy. It's a two-step process. One, OK, we accept the CLMPs as they are, but there is a second step where the protections that are stripped out under the draft proposals, which all councillors are familiar with, having read both documents, we will then ensure that those protections are transferred to the Parklands Management Strategy, or at least that will be considered by Caterpillar in the process.
I think, though, that in the process, this is quite a complicated motion, and I think there will be people here who can accept 1, 2 and 3, but are uneasy about the complications and unwilling to defer the whole item.
Lord Mayor, I'm happy for the matter to go to a vote, and for those who feel uncomfortable about this to vote against it. That is something that I have contemplated, and if my colleagues wish to vote this down, then that would be their decision.
So I would think it would be, there is no reason why we couldn't have part 4 as requests that Caterpillar considers, because then they can be contingent on that element going through without stopping the whole of the item, because what's going to happen is if some members vote against part 3, they lose the whole process. It gets blocked. So there's moving an amendment to move that to be part 4.
Hang on, Lord Mayor, we're in informal. We need to go back into...
We've gone back into formal, sorry.
Oh, we have?
Yes. So I just encouraged Councillor Ho to do this, and I think it's been very helpful. So you've moved Part 4 to be adjusted, seconded by Councillor Kouros. That's all those in favour? No?
Look, the proposal that I put forward was quite simple, despite the assertion that it's complex. It is simply that those protections contained in the current community land management plans are transferred for consideration by Cadlotilla, and that the CLMPs as proposed go through. That is a two-step process that is very clear to me. The consequence of deleting, as Councillor Ho has proposed, what follows is that the parklands protections in the eyes of our community are stripped away.
I seriously, Deputy Lord Mayor, I don't need you to speak on my behalf. Thank you.
Sorry?
I don't need you to speak on my behalf.
I am talking, Lord Mayor, to the consequences of adopting Councillor Ho's motion. It's a false point of order. The consequence of adopting Councillor Ho's motion is that the protections for our parklands will be stripped away by the current community land management plans. They rest, as our administration has repeatedly told us, in the Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy. That is where the administration says the protections are. I am assisting the administration in providing that path. That is being rejected by my colleagues. The Councillor Ho motion, and I can see Councillor Davis nodding his head in agreement, that those protections are stripped away. That is what they are consciously doing. I disagree profoundly. I cannot see any problem, any impediment to saying to the community broadly, we accept the concepts, the elements of what is in those community land management plans shifting to the Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy. I'm not asking for a mirror image of those. I'm asking for those concepts and elements to move across there. Now, it's a very simple proposal. If people cannot understand it, then I regret that our parklands will, in the eyes of our community, be stripped of a substantial protection.
Thank you. So, Councillor Ho, you have just separated those items. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, I mean, put it this way, Lord Mayor, if you are unable to understand what the red, what those items in red are, how would you expect us to understand it fully? And besides that, Deputy Lord Mayor, with respect, you sent all your amendments to us at 5 o'clock, all right? And without a big document here for us to refer to every single pages, just like Councillor Kouros mentioned, I'm not going to memorize the whole document. So give us some time to understand what you really talk about. What are those items referred to? To next week, it doesn't harm. Let's deal with whatever we have to deal with this week. Therefore, we don't hold up the process. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I definitely want to hold up the process. I don't think that we should be we've had massive complaints about the proposed document that's there. I definitely don't want to see it gazetted and gone out and adopted without those protections being in place, first of all. I don't want to wait until Cadlotilla comes back with a review of the Adelaide Parklands Management Strategy and puts those back in. What I would like to do is have all of that in place in two consolidated documents, if that's the way we need to go, and then move that en bloc. I don't see the need to... Move it?
Move that motion.
Oh. Well, I don't think I can. I mean,
you can move it now.
That we defer this item to the next council meeting.
Debate this round 4. Can I just say that we have an amendment, which is that Part 4 becomes Part 4. Councillor Kouros. Has Councillor Davis finished? To move another amendment.
Oh no, it's okay if I get interrupted.
You're speaking against Councillor Ho's amendment.
I have no idea what's going on in terms of meeting procedures, so I don't know who's moving what, whether there's a second or a mover amended or whatever. But my view is that we shouldn't do any of this. We should be very clear to the community exactly what we are doing, and I don't want to see another process at a future time then come back and then promise that the protections will be in place. Because what my understanding is that the CLMP that we would be gazetting, and I could be completely wrong on this, is the one that we had massive outrage about. But then we're going to say come back later and fix that up at a later stage from advice from Caterpillar. I'm not very happy with that. And I want to make sure that whatever we're adopting before it gets gazetted has all the protections in place so that we have the debate about the aquatic centre. I mean, does this motion remove or express to the state government that we're not going ahead with the aquatic centre in that park? That's what I would like to see, that we at least have that discussion. I think we should be going back to the state government and saying we want you to move it to a brownfield site. I know that you'd like to enter into the debate with me now. I'm not sure if you call a point of order against yourself. But that's what I think we should be doing as a council, and I think that it's a very haphazard way of doing it. Why don't we defer this, we vote this down, come back with these documents, and before we go out and gazette things and finalise things, we have complete documents so everybody knows exactly what's going on, and not relying on thoughts and prayers at a future date. Councillors are extremely confused about this. This is extremely important to our community. 7,000 people have signed this petition on change.org. I definitely don't think that we should be rushing at the gate in one of the most confused nights that I've ever seen in my life, and this is definitely the most confused motion I've seen in the last 10 years.
The amendment is about separating item 4 from item 3. And Councillor Couros, did you want to speak to that?
I need to say thank you, Lord Mayor, for your clarity in regards to separating that and giving us the ability to move this forward. It's a sensible way. I understand that Councillor Davis and Deputy Lord Mayor have got concerns. The community have got concerns, but we still got that in there, asking Caterpillar to consider the concerns that Deputy Lord Mayor has put in his amendment in detail. It would be nice, as we have said, we haven't memorised the whole documents. We know the gist of it all, but we need to actually compare one to the other. So thank you, Lord Mayor, for your leadership in this. I appreciate that. This is a much better way forward.
So thank you. We'll just take a vote on separating the paragraph beginning requests from item 3, and that was just that motion, not voting on part 4, but voting on the separation. All those in favour of separating? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's a split vote for all, so I'll cast my vote on the separation. Be counting that? Yep. And now we'll take the matters in parts. So it seems to me that 1, 2, 3. May I just have some advice? 1, 2, 3, and 5 and 6 are.
Can I move a procedural motion that this lie on the table until the next meeting of council?
That's a procedural motion to lie on the table. Sorry? Has that been seconded by the Deputy Lord Mayor? It has. All those in favour? Yes, it's been pointed out to me that the Deputy Lord Mayor can't second that.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. Are you asking for another seconder? Not.
I'm just trying to clarify how many people have spoken on it.
David hasn't. Can you second the motion aloud?
So, the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Snape, Councillor Ho, and Councillor Couros have spoken.
Can you second my motion?
Or Councillor Noon?
Or no?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
But we're doing so anyway.
So we're still waiting to see if there's a seconder.
Councillor Noon.
That's just one seconder.
Councillor Noon did.
Are you moving?
I second.
So Councillor Moon is seconded. That this lie on the table.
Until the next council meeting.
Can I just remind you that the original motion did have 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6 as moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor, and you're now deciding to let this lie on the table.
1 to 6 lie on the table. Until the next council meeting. Well, yeah, 1 to 3.
Can I ask, Lord Mayor, what are the implications of this being delayed further?
I think the implications is that it will not be gazetted, and it's basically motivated by a desire to block the swimming pool.
Sorry. There's a point of order.
Lord Mayor,
hold on. I have a point of order. Section 12:15. You can't debate it. If there's a formal motion, it must immediately be put to the vote.
Can you sit down, please? We are not debating.
Not for you to enter debate.
Sit down. We can't debate it, but I'm just explaining what the impact. All those in favour? And all those against? And I'll have a casting vote. Against? Yes. Thank you, members. So the item will not lay on the table. Can I suggest that we take the 6 parts as 2 blocks? 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6 together, and then 4 separately. Sorry. So we'll now move 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3.
Don't you get to sum up and debate and?
Well,
I've spoken to an amendment.
Can you please stop speaking? I have given the Deputy Lord Mayor the nod if he wants to speak, but you're not. I spoke to the amendment. Don't I get a chance to speak to the substantive motion? You have spoken, but the Deputy Lord Mayor may sum up.
To the amendment?
The amendment was for Part 4.
Which was passed, and now I get to speak to the substantive motion.
It was not passed.
Yes, that's why it's there. It's in a separate item. You use your casting vote to accept the amendment.
But it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 that we're now discussing.
Yes, and so there was an amendment. You use your casting vote. The amendment then passed. I've spoken to the amendment. Now I'm seeking to speak to the substantive motion. And I'm pretty sure you get to speak to both the amendment and the formal motion. That's how standing orders work.
I understand you've spoken to all of it. So how many times has he spoken? We're just checking the number of times he's spoken. We believe you have spoken, but the Deputy Lord Mayor may wish to sum up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I will be voting against this. It was my intention to find a compromise, a way ahead that would have allowed our community to find some comfort in Council directing the matter to Cadletilla to enable them to incorporate those protections they believe that are being stripped out of our current community land management plans into another document, a document on which they could have had some faith. As it is, what I am being asked to vote for is the community land management plan proposal that strips all the detail out of them, and without any assurance that the protections that they have now will find their way into any other document, let alone back into the council. I think if I were them, I'd be feeling a great deal of distress tonight that the matter has been lost in the manner it has. It is unfortunate, and indeed it's ironic that tonight, as we were considering this, I was noting sorry, my colleague was directing me to a message from someone near and dear. we considered another matter earlier tonight when it was suggested that the Velo 500 proposed activities weren't consistent with the Community Land Management Plan. That is the plan that is in place at this time. Now, it won't be possible to do that in future because we've stripped away a lot of the protections. And that's exactly the point. The point was made tonight. The CLMPs provide a protection, a point that we can raise in defence of our parklands. This meeting has decided we'll do away with those. And I hope that at some stage in the future, those who voted against this might be prepared to consider an alternative approach. But for this time, it seems like it's lost. I just hope our parklands aren't.
Councillor Snape.
I would like to request that the current community land management plans be tabled. The current existing community land management plans be tabled to a meeting, please.
Management plan, if I could just speak, it's 10, some of them are 10 and some of them are 15 years out of date. And also we haven't got a current Adelaide Parklands management plan either. They're all rather time expired. So, Mr. Haridis, do you have...
Thank you, and through the chair, and would probably seek some clarification from the councillor as to the intention of the request, but importantly, the CLMP process is our legislated requirement to review those documents. That's the process that has been commenced in June last year and progressed through the council at several meetings. The APLMS is also due for review, and that document will come to Cattle Tiller and to council as a draft for review. And as we've undertaken previously, look to pull through the feedback we've received through the consultation of the CLMP process for items to go into the APLMS. With regard to the request to table the existing CLMPs, I would probably just seek clarification as for what purpose in the context of the motion to ensure I'm addressing the question accurately.
Yes, I think that they have been tabled previously and they have been made available.
I don't believe they've been tabled. I'm asking them to be tabled to this council meeting, and for clarification, the existing and previous, so the former, I should say, community land management plans. And I will cite Regulation 18 to do so. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I think that we're in a position to read them all as a procedural motion, and they haven't been denied to the chamber, they have been available. So that the procedural motion relates to matters that have been denied and will prevent you making a decision.
I feel that I could not make a vote, Lord Mayor, without that information being tabled to the chamber tonight. Thank you.
But the matter will not prevent you because they have been tabled and they've been available before. So I deny that request.
Through the chair, the only other thing I'd point out is the CLMPs are on the public record and publicly available and aren't closed or unavailable to any person.
So I think we will move on to the voting on 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. And I'll ask those in favour.
I have a point of order that the councillor has indicated that he's not willing to vote pursuant to section 18 of the regulations and that he's requesting information be tabled to this chamber that is going to help him make a decision. The only course of action which is available is to defer the matter and not put it to a vote.
Can I remind you that that information is not unknown, it has not been denied, and it has been freely available. And if the member hasn't read it, it is his responsibility, not the chamber's.
That's not what the regulations say.
No, so therefore, was what he's asking for, is it in confidence? Is it something that he cannot obtain?
It's not in confidence, it's freely available.
And so then it doesn't need to be tabled.
That's a question, it's freely available. I'll ask you to vote on 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. All those in favour? All those against? I'll use my card to vote again.
I refuse to vote.
You can't refuse to vote. It's a local government regulation. There's a division being called. I'm sorry? I voted in favour of 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. And now item 4.
A division, Lord Mayor.
A division has been called. All those in favour?
Members, please stand in favour of recommendation 5, part 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6, until your name has been called. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros and Councillor Lee. Thank you.
And I will vote in favour. Item 4, which is to request Adelaide to consider the following parts. Do you wish to close that debate, Deputy
Lord Mayor, no, I will be voting against it, and I ask my colleagues to do likewise. That is, oh, hang on, this is the amendment. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, I'm confused too. Yes, look, I will vote for it. And I would ask Councillor Kouros, Councillor Ho, everybody in this room to support it also, for the reasons that have been made abundantly clear. To do so, I think, will be a disappointment for our stakeholders.
So unless there's a concrete view, I'll put that to the vote. Item 4 now. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. We call a division.
Members, can you please stand in favour of the motion for recommendation 5, part 4, until your name has been called? Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Lee, Councillor Snape and the Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, that's carried. So all parts have now been carried. Thank you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Elliott moved. Councillor Ho seconded. All those in favour? No. Would you like to speak against?
No, I'd like to move an alternative, if I may, or an amendment.
Yes, please.
Very briefly. I am speaking to item 13.
13, yes.
Yes, and I'd like to propose that one word is altered, that is, endorses is replaced with the word notes.
I'll accept that amendment.
Oh, thank you, Lord Mayor. May I speak to it?
Yes, as seconder. Councillor Noon.
The purpose of this seemingly minor amendment lies in the language that I think has been mistakenly employed. The Oxford Dictionary definition of the word endorse is to support a statement or action. And in this case, the recommendation is that we endorse or support the assessment of the consultation, the assessment provided by the administration. Now, the consultation found that just 2% of respondents supported the proposed lease and licence to be granted to the state government for the aquatic centre. And to use the administration's words, about 98% of respondents had, quote, a problem with that. Now, the feedback summary, that is the assessment that we're being asked to endorse, and I propose note, says quite clearly in the executive summary on page 3, the feedback from the community outlined a strong sense that a new aquatic centre is warranted. However, it should be located on a brownfield site, preferably not on parklands or on the site of the current aquatic centre. Key feedback themes related to the protection of the parklands, the current bid for World Heritage listing for parklands, so on and so forth. The state government aquatic centre project, Council's decision to proceed with that, and the investigation, and it goes on. But then the conclusion of the assessment is the feedback did not explicitly relate to the draft licence or lease agreement, which was the subject of the consultation. In other words, we did not receive feedback in line with the consultation. And yet that is largely irrelevant. People did respond. 98% of them said, we do not want that lease and licence for a whole host of reasons, including we want a brownfield site, there's not enough transport, we want to protect trees, but it was a valid result. And the administration response is to say the feedback didn't explicitly relate to that. It did. Now, I propose that we don't endorse that because that's not true. We did understand what the community was saying, and it's much more appropriate for us to say that we note the administration's assessment, not that we endorse it.
Councillor Noon?
I'd now like to debate the substantive motion. Wasn't that was an amendment? Yeah. I think we should be, as a council, doing everything possible to advocate for the state government to move the aquatic centre to the Brown Hill site. And my understanding is that this council is not going to do that, and that the CLMP and the management plan is going to proceed essentially as per recommended, which is to proceed with the aquatic centre on that site. My view is that we are not listening to our community, that we are, whether it's notes or endorses or anything like that, at the end of the day, the consultation and that feedback is largely going to be completely ignored, particularly around the aquatic centre. This is the only opportunity we're going to get right now to move the Adelaide Aquatic Centre. And previously, before them buying the East End Brewery, I was very much like, I believe that we had to proceed anyway. But now that they've taken that step, that seems to be like an opportunity far too good to pass up. And I'm really disappointed that this council isn't doing everything possible to move motions to ask the state government to move the aquatic centre, which would be a win-win for everybody. And I'm very confused about what the CLMP and the management plan is going to look like and when those protections are going to be there. But I do feel like we've completely missed the opportunity to pick up the feedback from our community and then put that to the state government. So I'm extremely disappointed by how this council has been dealing with this issue.
Lord Mayor, I'm sure that you have discussions with the state government in regards to the aquatic centre. Have they ever discussed visiting any other sites outside of Park 2?
I have not actually pressed them on that matter, but I do know that this council requested the state government and the federal government to fund a rebuild of the aquatic centre on that site. This council put in a bid for three-way funding between those bodies. That was not successful, but the current Labor government did agree to fund the entire project, which they are doing. The project has obviously, in a time of difficult economic development costs, supply chains and 30% increases in all our developments, had to put more money than they perhaps expected. But we requested them to build this at this site. So I think it's quite difficult now to say we don't want to have it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I now speak to that? Echoing exactly what you just said. We are a very confusing council. First, we approached the state government, both levels of government, to fund the aquatic centre. Then we have an election promise from the Labor government saying that they will pay for the aquatic centre themselves, because we were losing a substantial amount of money on the aquatic centre. And now we're going to turn around and say, what Councillor Davis is saying is like, pretty please, let's go, let's change, let's have a conversation again, let's change the site. How confusing is it all? How confusing is it as a council? We flip-flop and change our messages to the state government. We have an aquatic centre which is at the end of its life. It's got concrete cancer. The state government have got their own consultation in which it's a well-loved pool. This is where they've chosen to do. We've expressed this to the state government on both levels of government during the election, as I said. They've come back, and this is what we've got. As much as we would all love to take the easy way out and, listen and have it removed somewhere else, it's just too far on. It's too far gone. It's too far ahead. They're not going to listen right now. There's too much investment being built with the state government for it to be on Park 2, sadly. Councillor Davis, I'm sure that if we go back and go to the state government requesting them to change the site, I think we will look a little bit like fools.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Snape.
I'll once again keep this brief because I think a lot of it's been said already, but I will just say as well that the state government made an election promise, through you, Chair, for an aquatic centre. They did not make an election promise on the location of said aquatic centre. That has been established quite clearly. I did not...
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I mean, that's not true. It was an election promise on Part 2.
Then that's a surprise to myself. Thank you, Councillor Couros. Look, I'll give Councillor Davis credit where credit's due. We don't agree on everything, but he's made some interesting points around the location of the aquatic centre, points that myself and the Deputy Lord Mayor have shared for quite a long time. So we welcome your support and your voice into this debate, and Councillor Noon as well. Sorry.
I apologise.
And yes, look, I think our job, it's not always an easy one, but we have to represent the community, and the community has, by and large, come out against the location of this aquatic centre. We know it's quite far down the track now, but I don't think we can just bury our heads in the sand with this. I think we need to keep on using our voices and using our votes to show that community support. And so, yes, I'll be opposing the aquatic centre for as long as I can.
Thank you, sir. I think we've made a decision of how we're voting. Councillor Elliott, I'm sorry, I didn't offer you the chance.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I did. I moved or seconded, I can't remember. But I think this kind of points to the fact that there are no easy decisions about how the parklands are managed, and this issue has been allowed to become a weeping sore. And I think the only fault of the previous council was that it was so close to the end of their term that a decision couldn't be landed upon. So I'm glad that we are able to make a decision now, because the building is crumbling, it is falling apart, and it is well and truly overdue for renewal. The problem is that there has been an aquatic centre on that site for 50 years. There's generations of South Australians that have grown up with an aquatic centre in their parklands, and it's entirely consistent with the use of the parklands to have community facilities that derive or deliver community benefit to the residents and ratepayers of the City of Adelaide and residents and visitors, the city metropolitan area as a whole. Unfortunately, with this deal, there is no way of getting out of the fact that we have to pull down the existing aquatic centre, and estimates at this stage with increasing construction costs are about $20 million. There is no win-win situation for the City of Adelaide to put it on a brownfield site when we still have to front up that money with the costs increasing and then have no community asset to deliver back to our ratepayers for that money. There is absolutely value in saying, well, the parklands are an asset in themselves, and I wholeheartedly believe that, and I am working on ways to get improved biodiversity and increase of return to parklands across our parklands through our strategic plan and city plans. However, the fact that there has been that asset there for such a long time, there is an expectation that the facility would be delivered like for like, and we simply cannot justify using $20 million of ratepayer money to send the aquatic centre, the Adelaide Aquatic Centre, outside of the City of Adelaide, where we'll be one of the only City Council areas that do not have an aquatic centre or a community swimming facility within their council boundaries. West Torrens has, well, actually, I don't know if West Torrens has one, but Unley certainly does. Burnside certainly has one, and they're very well used, and they are there specifically for the benefit of their own ratepayers who fund the construction. And this is a very rare opportunity where we have a state government that's stepping in to provide a solution to, one, get rid of a crumbling facility that's going to cost us tens of millions to get rid of, and two, provide a brand new facility that we're going to then inherit and be able to manage for the ongoing benefit of our ratepayers. So in sum, this is a difficult decision. It might not be the perfect solution, but we have already passed many other motions in this chamber with the support of the full chamber to try and reduce the overall built form footprint on the parklands, which can deliver much better outcomes for our ratepayers than just to move this off-site at our own cost.
So a point of order that the actual footprint is not going to be less.
Point of order, that's not a point of order related to this item. Thank you. I'll put that motion now, as amended. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. I've got a brief report this week. I attended the biofair, which I recommend to many of you. It's quite an interesting activity around other council areas, but also very extensively in the parklands. They had a family event in Victoria Park on Sunday, which ran in parallel to the community forums for Caterpillar. We've hosted several receptions, but I should thank several of the members, Councillor Noon, Councillor Kouros and Councillor Abrahimzadeh, for attending the Spirit of Women organisation event to celebrate this place of courage, which shone a light on domestic violence. I attended a CEDAR roundtable lunch at Minter Ellison and attended an extraordinary event for the 7th Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiments, who were commemorating their involvement in the Iraq theatre of war with a new banner and inscribing Iraq on their colours. We had a delegation from the Australia-India Relations Group, and that's funded by the federal government to increase trade and investment between India and Australia. They have a substantial quantity of money, and they are looking for ways that they can support activities, and we will keep in contact with them in the future. I finally would thank several councillors who represented the city at the Masters Games. Having been involved with this event for many years, I chose not to attend, and I'm grateful for their representation. Instead, I attended a range of events that celebrated the arts, a Dictionary of Lost Words, Adelaide Chamber Choir Festival at the Cathedral, and the Swan Lake with the Australian Ballet. So I didn't go to the sporting events. So thank you. Would someone move noting my report? Moved by Councillor Kouros. Thanks. Seconded by Councillor Snape. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. We're now moving on to councillors' reports. Are there any? Would anybody? Councillor Snape.
Just one quick item, Lord Mayor, which you yourself touched on, but as Councillor Noon and I represented the City of Adelaide and yourself at the Australian Masters Games, where I got slightly sunburned and I'm still recovering to this moment. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your representation. Any other comments? If not, thank you. We will move on then. Did we have a move of Councillor Kouros, seconded by Councillor Snape? All those in favour? That's noting. Thank you. Now, motions on notice. Deputy Lord Mayor, 17.1. This is the strategic property review.
Yes, Lord Mayor. May I ask that both of those motions are deferred to the next meeting of Council?
I'm sorry?
I would like to withdraw those motions until the next meeting of Council, please.
And the restoration of the town hall. The reply has been circulated. Do we have any without notice?
I have a question without notice.
Yes.
It was relating to the roadworks outside the town hall. I'm quite concerned about cyclists and the cyclist path and the queuing of vehicles on the left-hand lane to turn left onto King William. That seems to be extremely chaotic, and I'm wondering if the administration could just review that situation in relation to cyclist and vehicle movement to improve safety, perhaps.
So, through me, could we just get some advice from Mr McCready?
Through you, Lord Mayor, we'll take as an undertaking and work with the contractor to look to enhance the safety aspects near that intersection and report back to Council through an e-news in regards to the outcomes.
So we'll take that on notice and report back next week. So thank you. If there are no other questions without notice, I think we'll close the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.